Well, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are taking a look at the highly anticipated all-new tooling GS-4 from Broadway Limited. These are Southern Pacific locomotives in 4 different, let's say, recent variations. You've got the BNSF Excursion from the early 2000s, 1975 American Freedom Train, modern Excursion as you would see it today, and the Excursion appearance from 1981 to 2000. So with that said, let's take a look at what you get in the box starting right now. Chosen this 1981 to 2000 Excursion version to unbox. So we just pop off the lid there, and inside is the manual staring at you right in the face, along with some other information about new HO scale arrivals in Paragon4. Shark nose RF16s, ST70 ACEs are going to be great, and business cars. Now, the Broadway Limited hasn't officially announced the Union Pacific business cars, but for you Excursion folks, those Union Pacific business cars are coming. They've hinted at them several times in the Broadway flyer, so be sure to sign up for that if you would like to see more about it and kind of stay ahead of future news. Paragon4 Rolling Thunder Operation Manual is several pages long, going all the way to page 31 with functions and CVs, and I use the function list to test out these locomotives. In the box you have basically a hard dense foam. Packaging has changed somewhat. As you can see, still the plastic blister packaging, but I'll show you what I mean by what has changed as we get into the plastic sleeve here. On the top it says, to avoid damage to your BLI locomotive, please turn off track power before placing the locomotive on the track. Verify all wheels are properly on the track before applying track power. So make sure you do that. Never want to risk it. And if you slide off the outer plastic, you've got couplers, traction tires, a tool for removing the driver to place traction tires on, a funnel for the smoke, and just a gel pack there. If you pull open the clamshell packaging, the sides should kind of fall down to the side, and that lifts up to the locomotive, as you can see here. Now, on this locomotive, you got some soft plastic protecting it as well, but you'll notice the main difference in packaging. It's on this little platform, and the platform has little wheel tracks, so you're okay picking this up, but we are going to move this other stuff out of the way, and I'll show you how to remove the locomotive from the platform. The locomotive is attached to the platform by 4 screw points. Probably a little hard to see from here, but and we're filming with my phone camera, as my camcorder finally gave up after 7 years of faithful service. But I'm going to research that and see what the best way forward is long term for that. But as you can see, and some of these screws may get away from you here, you're just simply unscrewing the bottom screws, and that will free the locomotive from the display stand or track. Some people are really excited that, you know, you get kind of a display stand for it with a track. And then there's little pieces that are secured to the locomotive. This one a little tight. There we go. And one of them came off onto the stand. And then you have the locomotive free. Now, as you can see, my display track is not long enough for this, so it's best to probably put it back on for purposes of the 360, but that's how you remove it. The last bit of unpackaging you'll have to do is gently pull up on the tape here, because there is a drop step, or not really a drop step, it's a deck plating. It's just on the 4449, it's up high, but if you yank on that tape too hard, you're going to possibly remove that, so just be gentle. 360 time, we will be pointing out some features of this locomotive, and obviously the tender. Keep in mind, all new tooling. So if you have a Broadway limited GS-4 from a previous run, this is going to be a lot different and a lot more accurate. From what I'm seeing, one of the most accurate toolings of a GS-4 ever made, definitely in a non-brass. So let's continue to dig in here to this locomotive. Okay, we're going to do something a little different. Instead of pointing out everything on this first model, we're going to be pointing out various things on all 4 different variations that I've gotten here. But you can start out with the front. You've got the Mars light and the headlight, the smoke box door. There is a handrail kind of going around the bottom in a U shape for the smoke box door, deck plating, 4449 on the front, MU hoses, and the pilot with the drop steps there. You've got the air horn, which is on function 22 in this case, classification lights, handrails, metal handrails, and a walkway going along the side. So on the tooling front, you can see some of these compartments here, the daylight logo. They've made this really nice and accurate with the compartments. And the tapered smokestack there, it's in kind of a teardrop formation. I'll show you a better look at maybe on another model or this one from a top view. Flying number boards 4449 along the side. The triple dynamo setup right here. Obviously your white wall wheels here as well. Some of the plumbing for blowdown and more. I'm going to tilt up a little bit and we're going to zoom in. Along this side, you can see the firebox, the trailing trucks, and some more of the plumbing. There's also the crew access ladder, the crew figure, sticking the little arm out right there, but fully featured crew figure. I do have the locomotive and the tender separated, but it's just a slight hook to get those together. They are currently wired out of the box together. You can obviously disconnect that as well. And as we move towards the tender, you can see all of the detail on the tender here. Getting kind of a close-up view, I'll get zoomed back out. 4449 on the rear marker lights. We've got the plumbing, the electrical conduit to the rear light there. A little handrail, MU hoses with silver tipped ends. Water hatches and other hatches up top along with handrails. And your crew access ladders on the rear here. And as we work our way back up the other side, another crew figure. So you've got both crew figures. Middle handrail right here above the crew cab as well. Vent up top that is adjustable. So you can adjust the roof vent. You can see the throttle rod going along the side to the front. More of the skirting. A good look at the trailing trucks here, and more of that plumbing for blowdowns and such. Builder's plates along the side. You can really see the pronounced compartments on the skirting, builder's plates, and more builder locomotive information, not locomotion information. There's a good side profile too. I know some GS4s on the market don't have the light arrangement correct. This one is correct. One was sticking out far more than the other. These are, from everything I can find on photos, correct. And speaking of teardrops, just like the smokestack, there's teardrop marker lights as well. So really nice locomotive. Very good reception online. When I run a few days behind, I get to see what other people are saying, and I can kind of incorporate anything positive or anything that needs improvement into the reviews, and I'm hearing a lot of positive information out there. So you've got your coupler cut lever up top too, and a lot of detail on this Pilot. So we'll move on to the other variations. All right, let's mix it up a little bit and look at the BNSF Excursion version. Now, just a little history here. GS-4 number 4449, which is in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon, was repainted for a BNSF employee special, and this is that paint scheme. So obviously there's a conduit going to the smoke box door there. I believe that might be a temperature sensor or something. I could be wrong. But that's accurately modeled on this new tooling. If you look down the sides, you can see that metal handrail there is very, very straight. One spotting difference you'll notice on the models is the number board placement. On the current version of 4449, the number boards are up here. And on other versions, like the 90s version with the larger Southern Pacific, the number board is back here. So for the 4 that we're looking at, middle place number boards for BNSF Special, the Employee Special, and the large lettering Southern Pacific. Front place number boards for the American Freedom Train and the later version of the current version of 4449 with the small lettering on the tender. So looking along the sides there, you see all the side rod detail. Again, the builder's plates are modeled right there. And we're going to go do a 360 and be kind of quick because I know you guys are anxious to get to operation. There are silver lines going along the side. Some people say it's white, some people say it's silver. You know, I think it's kind of very, very hard to discern, but it looks fine to me when comparing to the photos of the real 4449. But I'm not sure about any other configuration differences on the 4 I have. There are some other versions that I didn't get in this review because obviously, you know, budget limitations and time limitations and such. I don't want to buy every variation of the GS4, but as you can see here, lots of detail on the BNSF version as well. And I think that metal handrail even above the crew cab there, even the sunshade is present. It looks really nice and it pops. It's just a beautiful locomotive. Now we're looking at the Freedom Train version, and contrary to popular belief, 4449 was not only in the Freedom Train scheme back in 1975 and 1976, but also 2001 after the attacks on the towers in New York. So this is that scheme. Number board placement, from what I can see with 4449 up front, is actually correct for both the 75, 76 and the 01 versions, but I could be wrong. I'm sure the commenters will correct me if I'm wrong, but a beautiful, beautiful scheme. And the paint is really nice on this as well. I've got quite a few Freedom Train locomotives, and this paint is just spot on. Beautiful blue, red, white, obviously not in the order that we Americans say it, red, white, and blue, but up here on the front, and the blue and the white stripes on the Pilot just really pop. As we look closer, you can see a little more detail that we've been missing with that white really sticking out, like this valve and plumbing right here. the compartments right there. This tooling is just very, very accurate, and every time I go to check a photograph to see if these details are present, they indeed are. So beautiful locomotive, very, very nicely done. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see closer details, as my turntable here has a mind of its own. Again, I'm working with my phone camera, so if you do not like how that's turning out, my apologies. I'll be comparing the video quality, and we'll be seeing if that is something that needs to be changed or not. So I do like that I have manual focus a little easier on here, so we can get that recentered, and that gives you a nice look at the locomotive detailing up close. So we'll swing around here, and we'll look at the cab. Gotta really stop that thing from moving. And some of the detail that's pronounced on the tender as well, sticking up. Obviously, I believe that's a toolbox, and then some valve or plumbing there, water hatch, handrails, and then of course, like I said, the positionable deck plating there. If you look at the tender closely, you can see that it has the rivet detail and the weld lines, like that weld line running there. They've really worked hard to capture that correctly on this tooling. And we're just going to zoom back out a little bit because we're getting a little too close for comfort. So the rear here is really nicely done. And as that comes into focus, you can see the white really helps highlight some of those details on this locomotive. And yes, I know it's not in the little track area for the display right now. So that is the Excursion version. We have one more to look at, or that's the Freedom Train Excursion version. We have one more to look at, and that's how 4449 looks present day. So this is what everybody would remember it looking like since that Freedom Train 2001 ran. It has been in this paint scheme, to my knowledge, with the small Southern Pacific lines on the side. And again, the number board's positioned up front, 4449 there. And no white-walled wheels here. Now, what previous releases from other manufacturers that may no longer be around had done is released this, but the number boards were in the incorrect position and the wheels were white-walled. So people were trying to tweak those, and now we've got a completely accurate GS-4 here. So that's nice to see. And obviously, as we look here at the nose, more details kind of pop out. You can see that teardrop shape surrounding the smokestack that I was referring to. There's also 3 safety valves up top. I'll try to give you a better look up top in a moment. And those are kind of brass in appearance, and a whistle. I already talked about the triple dynamos that are inset into the jacketing there. So that's nice. And we're just repositioning here slightly. And as you can see, the Southern Pacific lines on the tender, going by a little quick, but that's nicely done. All the print looks really, really great. This is just, at least from what I'm seeing on the details, well executed model. We still have all of the testing to do. We've got pull test, weight, NMRA compliance testing, so we will get to that right away. Just wanted to give you a 360 of the Excursion version as seen today. And for those that wanted to see the top, there is a top view. Obviously, safety valves, whistle, all subset into the jacketing here. And then your roof vents, which are open, which you can open and close, I mean. They are positionable, as you see there. And then obviously here is a bird's eye view of the tender. See if I can get this to go that way. This new setup here. There's the tender bird's eye view as well. Well, I just found the first advantage of the camera, and that is that you can finally see what the scale is reading. But I've got this zeroed out, as you can see. I'm going to set the locomotive on the scale. Obviously, that display stand and secure stand is not factoring into the weight as it's zeroed out. As you can see for yourself, 2 pounds, 5.7 ounces, 37.7 ounces total. That's 1 kilogram, 6.8 grams. So, very hefty locomotive. All right, we're all set up on the track here, and one of the questions I get asked a lot is how does the paint match with different cars on different things I review, especially passenger things. And this is a Broadway Limited 2-car set for the Southern Pacific Lines cars. The MTH version is just a shade darker. It looks like their paint hasn't changed. It's a perfect match for the Broadway Limited cars. Now, as far as the MTH cars go, very, very slight, darker, both red and orange. It is hard to discern. I'll try to put those next to each other as well, but when I tried earlier, it really wasn't being captured on camera. All right, everything's on the track, ready to go. Let's hit F9, which is extended startup for the Broadway Limited Paragon4 system. So there's your startup. And we're going to go through some functions here. See the smoke starting to warm up there. It's usually pretty quick on my other takes, but I think I turned smoke off, which is F7 since we're covering it. F1 is bell. F2 is whistle. Very responsive. I just did that grade crossing by quickly pressing the F2 for the short blasts. F3's coupler sounds. Usually you have to move the locomotive to get that sound to engage. F4's air pump. F5's blowdown or chuff volume increase if you're moving. F6 is water fill. F7 smoke on and off. We'll get this thing smoking again here. Sometimes you just have to blow down the stack. Alright, we're smoking again. I hit something and had to basically power cycle. Sometimes the NCE Pro Cab still bewilders me a bit. So, F9 is the extended startup and shutdown that we talked about. 10's oil injector. So, we'll do that real quick. 11's water injector. And I realize a lot of these sounds are probably hard to discern with all of the background going on. F12's brake set, F13's grade crossing signal. Let's go ahead and listen to that. There's your puffing smoke. F14 station sounds. One thing we want to skip to is F22. That is the alternate whistle, which in this case is the air horn. You can see it right there at the tip, right in that brass color. Oops, might not have done it right here. Hold on. So there you go, both the whistle and the air horn. F22 toggles to the air horn. 23's track sounds, clickety-clack. 24's the Mars light on. So we'll do that. And I just turned it off because it was already on. But as you can see there, folks that are worried about the blue tint of previous and other manufacturers and previous runs, these are nice and white. They're kind of just a pure clear white. Long whistle's 25. (26) plays back macro. 27 records macro. We've covered this before at length. The 26 function, or 27 function, you can record speeds, whistle, sequences, bell, and then 26 plays it back. 28's just brake squeal. So that covers the 28 functions of this locomotive. Let's continue on with the testing and review. Okay, here's the pull test. I switched out to the American Freedom Train. And lost connection. Holy smokes. Thing's gonna pull the layout apart. It's capping out at 12 or 13. Obviously, with passenger, you got no problem. With freight, have at it for 100 plus cars. You know, a pull test of 13. She's starting to really yank at the tender even. Is going to be over 100 car pulling power, so you're fine. Broadway always shocks me with their pulling power. Whoever's the engineer behind that is doing a great thing, great service for us modelers. Okay, let's talk lighting again for a minute here. I'm going to dim the lights so you can see the rear marker lights. And as you can see, they light up pretty nicely. Also, looking a little bit forward, you can see the cab light. And then we'll move this around. You can see the number boards are nicely lit. Got your headlight, your marker lights up front, along with number boards on each side of the headlight itself. Now your cab light will automatically go off in speed step 3 as you're moving along. We've talked about the Mars light being turned on with the function 24. So you can see that there. So really nice overall lighting in my opinion. Now we're quickly going to talk about Pro lighting mode, but we're not going to cover it because it doesn't take much imagination to figure out how that works. But in Pro lighting mode, which is setting CV128 to 1, you can individually handle the front marker lights, the number board lights, the rear marker lights, the rear light, the cab lights, all can be independently activated and functions change for that. One thing I failed to show you on the rear real quick is the rear light, also nice, pure white and bright. The rear marker lights appear to have red facing directly back, clear facing to the sides. Now we've got BNSF 4449 on the track, and I'll demonstrate how you can just move the locomotive to start it versus doing the extended startup. I'm at 1 speed step, fires right up and then moves. Speaking of movement, our next check is the speed steps. So I've got this set up here on the AccuTrack 2 speedometer. We're going to move this at 1 speed step and see out of the box both how smooth it is and also what speed step it registers at. The puffing smoke's just really nice. You can also change things like the intensity of the smoke, how much is coming, heat, etc. So we got 2.3 scale miles per hour per speed step. Not bad. You can adjust it if you want it slower, but usually you'll compromise smoothness of drive, which in this case it looks like it's very, very smooth at 1 speed step, so it's not too fast. We'll check reverse on the smoothness as well while we're doing this. But it's not too fast, and it's nice and smooth from what I can see at 1 speed step. You can really kind of zoom in and look at the drivers to see how smooth it's actually running, because those will tell you real quick, and it seems very smooth to me. Lots of smoke. Alright, last but definitely not least is the large lettering version. I believe 81 to 2000 on this. And white walled wheels, obviously, with that star pattern in the center that's on the other ones as well. But my main point for bringing this one out is to finally show you the orange match on the MTH cars. So Broadway Limited and MTH are the two major higher detailed manufacturers of Southern Pacific passenger cars in the past. MTH now out of business, but several people have those cars, so I just wanted to show you the color match. I know I said MTH was a little darker, but pulling them out of the box, it is actually almost spot on, maybe even a fraction lighter than the Broadway Limited cars, but looking at it right next to the locomotive, I mean, it looks like a very good match, so I'm not seeing anything that would indicate something that really jumps out at me. I am red-green colorblind, though, so if you're like, why is he not seeing that? What in the world is he talking about? That's why we have video for you. Got a little oil mark on there from too much smoke fluid. But anyway, it is a dead-on match. You know, very hard to tell, if any, in my opinion, both the MTH and the Broadway Limited passenger cars. One more thing I do want to mention, other than the fact that all 4 of these locomotives are performing flawlessly, which tells me Broadway Limited has some really good quality control on these locomotives. But one other thing I want to mention is the added capacitance. Watch this. I'm going to move this up a little bit so you can see 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000, 5 1000, 6 1000, 7 1000, 8 1000. 8 seconds of track power interruption, and I'm not going to set that back on the track right now because they tell you not to do that, but 8 seconds of track power interruption, and the added capacitance was still allowing the locomotive to run. What does that mean for you? Well, other than having fun just taking it off the track and it still runs for a few seconds, if you have dirty areas of track, wires become disconnected like a feeder wire on your layout and you don't know it, or, you know, just areas of the track that are rough, or you want to quickly put it in a siding, and you've got power kind of somewhere at the beginning of that siding, you can do those things and run it in that dirty track without any problems. So, you know, for once the train is waiting on another train in this case, but well, let's move on for the rest of the review. Trains don't belong on roads unless they're on trucks. Well, that's going to wrap up our review of the Broadway Limited GS-4 all new tooling. And I asked a question on the thumbnail. You may notice the all new thumbnails. But I said best GS-4 ever, and I'd have to say it is. I've had and seen brass GS-4s. I've seen plastic ones. This all metal chassis, the fact that they have all new tooling and they've tooled it correctly, and I'm sure combed over photos, if not visited the real thing, to get all those accuracies. Every time I looked for an inaccuracy, I couldn't find one. So the accuracy of the model's great. The operation of the model is smooth, a little quick at 2.5 or 2.3 speed steps, but it doesn't really, it's kind of hard to tell at the human eye, but you can always adjust that with CVs. I just show you what's available out of the box. One thing that you can't hear too well, especially with this phone camera, is the Paragon4 subwoofer system. I keep it, pardon my mess, down here. You can see it just in view there. Below, and that system is a subwoofer that wirelessly communicates with the locomotive to have that trackside experience with that bass if you want it. I love that system. I think it's just great, but some people, you know, don't, and you don't have to buy the subwoofer or the receiver, so you won't know it exists if you don't have it. So it's a very neat system, obviously operating on DC, DCC, and then the Paragon4, which is the latest version of the Broadway limited sound decoder and electronics. So people get confused and think it's some sort of proprietary system. It is in I guess, name, and I'm sure some licenses or whatever, but it will operate on DC, DCC, and I think it plays well with all DCC controllers from what I know of. So with that said, I'll leave you with a run-by of some of the versions of these with a few passenger cars. And, you know, people ask, James, why do you hoard so much? Well, really came in handy today to be able to compare the passenger cars' colors to the locomotive. So I hope that helped you as well. We'll see you next time right here on the channel. Take care.